Miss Combos with Laura Newseth. Yahoo and welcome back to Miss Combos with Laura Newseth. In today's video, we're going to be reacting to the brand new Vivid Bat Squad World Link 2 cards. The event is titled Turning Pain into Drive. For those of you that forgot about the World Link 2 and how this set of events is going to be different from the first round, World Link 2 will present what if scenarios. Like, what if a character took this decision instead of that one and changes the trajectory of not only their life but also the outcome of the units that we know and love. So these events are not canon. They're going into an alternate universe, a dreamlike state where they're seeing the scenarios play out, but ultimately they actually did not affect their lives. They're just kind of seeing how their lives would have been affected if they took this decision over that decision. Or for me, the what if scenarios playing out this way is very interesting, especially when contrasted with the Bloom Festival cards. Bloom Festival cards has the characters when they're younger looking at pictures of themselves in the future. So if you keep working hard, this is what you have to look forward to. For me, this World Link 2 scenarios, it's almost as if they're forcing the characters to look at events that could have changed their lives in the wrong way, essentially. So kind of forcing them to be more grateful of where they are right now at this point in the storyline. At least that's how I'm interpreting it as an adult, because honestly, as someone who is older, I have thought about these types of scenarios plenty of times. Like, what if I would have stayed in Mexico, for example, instead of moving to the US? How would have that changed my life? I probably would not have met X person or that person. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to study abroad, perhaps. Like, there's all of these things that it boils down to making one decision that could have just changed the trajectory of your own life. So I personally do like this type of event stories, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the what if scenarios for the other units as well. This card reaction will have absolutely no spoilers. I have not started reading Toya's portion of the event, and of course the other chapters are currently locked, so I don't know what's going to happen to them, but I'm pretty excited to see all of these different scenarios play out. So now that we know all of that, let's look at the event summary. It reads, one day the members of Vivid Bat Squad went to check on the young tree sprout they have been taking care in the Sekai Plaza. At first, they were glad to see that it's doing pretty well. However, something strange suddenly happened to the tree, and all four of them ended up getting transported to a dream where they all went their separate ways. So with that being said, let's begin by looking at Toya's Untrained card, and here we have them not in Japan. You can clearly tell this is not Japan by the architecture in the background, and it's actually somewhere in Europe, and to be more specific, this is supposed to be Vienna, which is the capital of Austria. And I found this very interesting because Austria's ties to classical music. Austria is actually considered the Mecca of classical music. Not only is it a huge part of their history, they also had very famous residents, like the most legendary classical musicians in history as residents. We have Mozart, Beethoven, and Strauss, okay, some of the biggest names. So I do find it interesting that Toya is in the Mecca of classical music, surrounded by all of this rich history, and he looks probably the most depressed we have ever seen him. I'm interpreting this card in two different ways. The first one being that his father, which we all know is a classical musician, maybe he shipped out Toya to Austria for him to be immersed in classical music history. So that is scenario number one. Scenario two, which I feel like it's more likely that Toya made this decision for himself, thinking that it was the right decision to take in order to not only please his father, but also just follow in his footsteps of becoming a classical musician himself, essentially abandoning all of the ties to street music. And judging by not only his body language, but also facial expression, I'm kind of thinking that he made this decision for himself, thinking that it would lead to a much better future, and instead, he feels lonely, isolated, and probably the most depressed he's ever felt in his life. I know I'm so incredibly biased when it comes to this damn character because he's voiced by my favorite voice actor, but honestly, seeing this untrained card is really heartbreaking because, especially when you're so young, I'm trying to put myself in his shoes if I was forced to watch a what if scenario of my youth and I was the one who made this decision for myself, not my father, me. I was in charge of making this decision that changed my life for the worst. You're going to, be very mad that you were the one that screwed yourself over. Having these characters look at these scenarios and know that they're in a much better place because they took the different decision. Like, he chose to follow his dream with street music instead of classical music. Maybe it can bring him some sort of peace, and I feel like we can see this in his trained card, especially with all the doves flying. And we do know that white doves specifically are symbols of peace, hope, purity, and also new beginnings. I want to talk about the art style of this first before I go into and analyze like smaller things. I love the art style. It's so soft. It kind of just looks like a sketch that was colored in with watercolors or pastels. It's very soft, very elegant in a way, and the background's also quite elegant as well. It definitely does not look like Japan, I will say, but I do like the imagery of Toya looking a lot more relaxed and at peace, walking towards a building like he's the one in charge of his own path, essentially. I already talked about the white doves, but this is not the first time that we've seen Toya have these bird motifs. I mean, we have seen them even in his focus event. I mean, here we have him with black crows, which a lot of people do see black crows as bad omens, but they're quite intelligent birds and they often do symbolize transformation, intelligence, and even protection as well, which I feel like it's kind of how I would interpret them attached with Toya. He's always been very protected. I feel like he just wants to fly away and decide his own path for himself, which I do feel like if he was forced to watch this scenario play out, and he's much thankful and grateful for where he is at this point of his time. I do feel like the white doves are signifying that he's at peace with his decision to not follow in his father's footsteps. I feel like, especially with the most recent Toya Focus event, he's in a path to just find peace with his classical music backgrounds, with his father, and he's just kind of learning to not look back at those things with resentment. So that's how I'm interpreting his cards. Let me know how you are interpreting them in the comments below. Next up, we have Akito's Untrained card, and I feel like this is the card that's bringing up a lot of different discussions on social media, and there is a lot to discuss actually. So let's just get this out of the way. We do know Toya and Akito are partners. They refer to each other as partners a lot since the beginning of Project Sekai. And whether that is just completely platonic or there's something a little bit romantic just lingering there, we don't know unless Colorful Stage actually makes them explicitly one thing or another, but we do know that they're very important to one another. I would argue that they're one of the most important pairings in Project Sekai, or at least the ones that rely on each other the most. So in this card, we do have Akito with another partner on a different table, and then on the table next to them we have Toya with another partner. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack in this one card. Essentially, they're seated across from a person that it kind of resembles their actual partners. Like, Akito is seated in front of another cool-haired boy that looks a lot shyer, but still, despite the fact that it kind of looks like a Toya clone, it is not Toya. For Toya, he's seated across a red-headed boy who kind of has a very similar hairstyle to Akito as well. But despite the fact that there is those similarities, it's just not Akito. So both Akito and Toya in this what if scenario, they're not alone. They're actually with someone else that I'm guessing it's supposed to be their partner in this alternate universe. But despite that, I feel like there's so much longing for Toya in Akito's eyes. You can see him just glancing, trying to be discreet about it, but still, it's like his heart is longing for this person. Not the one seated across from him, the one seated at the table next to them. So I kind of feel, at least I'm interpreting this as the loss of their fated partner. And if you don't know the meaning of the term fated partner, it does refer to a soulmate, a destined partner, someone that the universe had specially for you, like it was meant to happen. And in the case of Akito and Toya, I do feel like there is this very strong bond, and they essentially do need one another in order to reach their goals. I will say I do find it interesting that Akito's what if scenario is essentially him not being in a partnership with Toya. I don't know if maybe at this point in time, Akito feels like he's taking Toya's friendship and companionship for granted, and maybe looking at this scenario play out is causing him to be more grateful of Toya. I mean, that perhaps could be what's happening. But here in his train card, we do see him a little bit more reserved in a way. He looks down. He looks like maybe he's a little bit frustrated with his relationship with Toya. I'm not entirely sure, but judging from his facial expression and body language, it just seems like he's a lot more tense. And he also looks a lot more disconnected with his current reality. And I find it interesting that Toya's card, you have him looking so at peace, walking towards the building. Akito's already in the building, but you see all of the windows are completely shut. So I'm not sure if that represents that he's shutting his feelings for perhaps Toya and not being completely honest with his feelings for him, but there is definitely something more to this card. Apart from that, from like his body language and how I'm interpreting things, the card is beautiful. It has the same art style as Toya's train card. It's very soft, very airy, I would feel like. I don't know, like I'm trying to describe this art style, and it truly does remind me of a sketch that is colored in with watercolors or pastels. It's just very beautiful to look at, but I do feel a sense of sadness from Akito's card in particular. I'm not feeling as hopeful and as peaceful with looking at his card. It's quite the opposite actually. So I'm definitely very curious to read more about his chapter. The next untrained card belongs to Kohane, where we're seeing another what if scenario with their destined partner. Here we have Kohane in the background just watching An from a distance, and An is with somebody else. So much like Akito's card, yes, we are watching a scenario where they're not with their destined partners. Instead, they're watching their partners with another person. But unlike Akito, Kohane is completely alone. There is no one next to her. So it just seems like she's content watching An from afar, even if it's painful for her not to be with An. The way I'm interpreting this card is it's so sad. This is like unrequited love. And if you haven't heard the phrase, unrequited love is essentially a one-sided love where you have strong feelings for someone that doesn't reciprocate those feelings. So yeah, Kohane's love is just not being returned. In fact, we don't know if in this world An even knows Kohane. It could be just someone watching An from afar like a fan, and An just being completely oblivious to Kohane's existence, which is so sad to think about if you if you put it that way. But Kohane does look happy, but I mean, at what cost? Truly, at what cost? I also do want to point out that in this what if scenario, Kohane's appearance is completely unchanged. She still has her long hair, the glasses. She essentially looks like she's content blending in the background as opposed to being on stage and commanding that limelight. So yeah, it's quite sad to see her just stay exactly the same, while An in this what if scenario has grown and changed, and you can see her latest casual outfit in this card. So it's so sad. Our little Kohame. Oh my god, so now let's take a look at her trained card. So here we have Kohane out in the balcony of the same building where Toya and Akito are in, but her facial expression looks like she is happy. Like, she almost looks like she's gonna cry tears of joy, if I'm being honest. She looks like someone who is doing a lot of self-reflection, and I kind of sense a sense of gratitude over the outcome of her life and being with An. But I do, like, if I can contrast her card with Akito's card, Akito, I could see him being a lot more reserved, like he's intentionally not being honest with his feelings. I do sense a little bit of that in Kohane's card. Like, you can see her arms are crossed over in front of her, so she is kind of sheltering herself a little bit. But the fact that she's outside in the balcony, I feel like she's making strides to be more honest with her partner, but she's not there yet. Like, she's not 100% ready to be completely honest, but she is very appreciative of her relationship that she does have with An. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. The card itself is also absolutely beautiful. Same art style as Toya and Akito's card. And that leaves us to just one more card that we need to look at. And here we have An Shiraishi. I will say the first thing that came to mind when I saw the image of her untrained card is that it reminded me a lot of her card where she is crying when she found out the truth about Nagi's health condition. But in this alternate universe, it seems like she knew all along. And although she is smiling, if we take a closer look at her eyes, they do look quite glassy, like she's been crying. And the way I'm interpreting this, since this is the card where we just see one character alone, there is no one else, not an NPC, not another member of Vivid Bat Squad, it's just An by herself. I do think that this is An trying to be or put on a happy face despite knowing that Nagi will not have a lot of time left in her life. Like, she knows the end is coming, and you can even see kind of like a dead end in the card being portrayed. But once Nagi does pass, and spoiler, like, she loses Nagi, one of the most important people in her life, An in this what if scenario is going to be completely alone without anyone in Vivid Bat Squad. So just saying that, dude, I do feel like her card is definitely the saddest one in my opinion. But now let's take a look at her trained card, where we do see her more at peace, similar to Toya's card. She just looks more like she can breathe a little bit, and you can even see that being displayed by her opening the window and letting air in. I can interpret this as An being thankful of the outcome in a weird way, of course, like finding out that someone so important to you is going to pass away and that they were concealing the truth essentially to protect her. Maybe she's now realizing that Nagi's intentions of hiding her health condition wasn't to hurt An, but to protect An, and in turn just letting her decide her own fate without her changing the trajectory of her life because of Nagi, essentially. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. Like, I have to repeat that over and over because I haven't read the story. I don't know what exactly happens, but knowing about her backstory and Nagi and all of that, I can kind of see it play in this way, essentially. But I do really like this card. This one again has that airy feeling that I have been saying in the last few cards. It just looks like Anne is ready for a brand new day, moving forward and just being in charge of her own life. Like, she just looks very calm and peaceful, and I do like that for Anne. I feel like she deserves that calmness in her life. And that is it for the Vivid Bat Squad World Link 2 cards. There are no 2-star cards in this event, so all that we have are just the 4-star cards of every single member of the unit. And I will say I absolutely love this set. From the untrained cards to the trained cards, they're all beautiful and they tell a lot of stories. Obviously, the Untrained presents a non-canon story, like this is what would have happened if they chose a different path. But we do know that they end up together. They end up surpassing Red Weekend, and they're working towards completing their second goals in their new story arcs. So we do know that the future is much brighter for all of them and that they're in charge of their own path. But just seeing all 4 cards like together displayed like this, you can see that each pairing in Vivid Bat Squad, like, they're not on the same page. Toya, like I mentioned earlier, is walking towards the building. Akito seems a lot more sheltered. Then you have Kohane, who is outside, and Anne, who is inside. But in their cards, the fact that Anne has the window open, it seems like she's opening herself up to Kohane. So they're definitely in very, very different places in their relationship with their designated partner. We will have to wait and see what happens in future Vivid Bat Squad focus stories, because I feel like although the what if scenarios in World Link 2 aren't canon, the fact that they did see these what if scenarios play out, will it help them appreciate what they have currently and their partnerships? Or is it going to backfire? Like, we don't really know. So that is something interesting that we will have to see play out in future focus stories. I am very curious about Akito's next focus event, because I feel like there is no way that his next focus story doesn't involve his partnership with Toya. Like, it has to. Like, his card was just such a strong call for his relationship with Toya. So I feel like it's either going to get tested in a future focus story, or he's just going to have to be upfront about his feelings for Toya or something. Like, his card was definitely the strongest one when it came to longing for his partner. So we will have to wait and see. I'm also very curious about Anne's next focus event, because it seems like she is in a completely different headspace to what we've seen in her past focus events. So she's done a lot of growing, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Let me know what you guys think about this World Link, the what if scenarios, the cards. How are you interpreting these cards? Let me know in the comments. If you're pulling on this banner, best of luck. I hope that you get the card that you want. I am happy to report that I am now poor in Project Sekai. I only have like 300 crystals, but I did get Toya's card. In the last 10 pull, he came home. So I am happy about that. Not happy that I'm poor, but happy that I at least got his card, which is the card that I really wanted, because it does have a special cut-in scene for Blender, which happens to be my favorite Toya commission. So yay for that. But I'm just gonna end the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys know that I could yap about Vivid Bat Squad for hours if I could, but I am not gonna do that. So Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see you all very soon in my next video. Bye bye!